Yeah, it looks like it was supposed to be in there.
No. Hey, we're at 1 minute, 18 seconds. It hasn't blown up yet.
Yeah.
All right, YouTube, let's get real here. I haven't decided what order I'm going to put this stuff in yet as far as this video goes, but if you haven't seen the footage yet, you're going to see it here in a minute after this. Or if you already have seen the footage, then you know what I'm about to say is this. We made an attempt off camera to fire up this engine for the first time. In all honesty, I just had some buddies over, didn't want to make it a big production other than, hey, let's just either celebrate together or watch Andrew melt down in misery as something goes wrong. And I would say verdict's out. It was about a half success. So here's a download rundown of what happened. I mean, it cranked right off to begin with. It took a little bit to settle in. We probably only ran this thing maybe a minute total between some tests and this and that. But what we found right off the bat was, in fact, let me back up. We also confirmed with a manual gauge here, plumbed into the port on the front of the engine here, that this was only making 10 to 12 PSI at idle. And we're using 10W30 with a Melling high volume pump. This should have been, or a high pressure pump, sorry. It's the 10269. So this should have been like through the roof, like 60, 70 PSI, I would have thought right off the bat. Okay, so we shut it down, hooked up the manual gauge, tried it again. Yep, same result. Okay, we'll pause all efforts. We have to resolve this. So went back and double checked bearing clearances. We're good. We know that we installed the cam retaining cover. That was new. All the gaskets in the engine are new, right? So very little things that could truly go wrong here, other than a couple. So I'll show you when we take the intake off, but I made one fatal mistake on this Gen 4 block. And again, this is, I believe, an L96 iron block, so it should never have had active fuel management. However, like all Gen 4 blocks, it still has the oil towers in there. And I'm not really getting a warm and fuzzy online about how crucial it is to block those off, other than I should probably do that because from everything I've read, those oil towers they are machined down to where the lifter oils. So theoretically, it could be a place where I'm bleeding off oil pressure. So this is the cover I really needed for a Gen 4 block, and you can see it has big big thick O-rings. The billet plate here is embossed where they'll sit. So this is going to for sure seal those, and just to make sure, I'm also going to put in these stainless engine plugs made for that. Bought those off Amazon. I'll put those in a link. And I'm also going to likely plug off the oil pressure hole that I'm not using as well. Let's just make sure that for sure is sealing, because that would very much be, right, if that's bleeding out, right, that would be what I would call a loss of pressure for sure. So we're going to take care of those two things, and then we're not even going to worry about firing it up. I'm going to pull the fuel pump fuse out, and we're just going to spin this over with the starter. And don't worry, this whole engine was soaked in assembly lube. It's already been pressurized with a hand spray pump. And I may do that again. We'll see. The oil filter I put back on is already full of oil, so we don't have to worry about that. And then let's just see what kind of pressure we can build with the starter. If it increases from what it was when we tried it, which was around that 10 PSI, then I don't know, I'll make a decision whether I want to try to start the engine again. If we do that, and the starter alone is able to get this to say 25, 30 PSI, maybe more for sure, we'll try to start the engine. But let's be honest, I'm probably going to try to start it at least a little bit either way. Like I said, I was making 10 to 12, and when I bumped the throttle a little bit, it did for instance, I bumped it up to like 1700 RPM just for real little time. And the oil pressure was reading both the electronic from the Holley and the manual. It was reading 30 PSI. So again, normally I would say, yep, that is definitely an oil ring pickup tube issue based on what I've heard, what I've read. But I want to see how it reacts with making sure those are plugged off in the valley first. And then if it does the same thing, okay, fine, we'll unbolt the motor, unbolt the transmission, try to get this thing up and forward enough to drop the pan, do the tube. It sucks, but you know, that's what good buddies are for. I'll have someone come over and help me. Maybe we can get that done in a day. So it's one of those two things. It'd be really nice if we just fired it back up after putting the right plate on, and we had oil pressure. That'd be fantastic. But I don't think that's going to be the case here. I think what we're going to find is we still are going to have to pull this engine up and out. Pull it up high enough to get underneath there with the creeper, to drop the pan, to replace the O-ring. And here's why I think that is part of the case is I went ahead, and just a review if you haven't seen those engine assembly videos, I am running a Holley 302-2 oil pan. That kit comes with a pickup tube. I don't remember the color of the O-ring. I'd have to go back and watch the videos, but I used the Holley O-ring on the melon pump. And it's all over the board. Some guys are like, yeah, this solved my problem. Some guys are like, nope, I'm using the Holley one just fine. So either way, we're going to take, if I still don't have oil pressure, we're going to pull that pickup tube, make sure the ring didn't get pinched, torn, or something where it's sucking air instead of oil. And we'll replace it with the quote correct Melling supplied O-rings. We'll figure out which one we need, and we'll use that. And if that still doesn't do it, well, then we will have to, at that point, pull the front of the engine apart, take the harmonic balancer off, and we're going to have to reevaluate the pump. I think having a bad Melling oil pump is probably the least likely cause. But we'll go in order from simplest to most complicated, and we'll get it figured out. This isn't the end of the world. I believe, for those wondering what my bearing clearances were anyways, I wrote them down when I plastic gauged this, but I couldn't find my sheet. And for the life of me, I don't remember. So I did go back to the guy, and at least he tells me that they were like 25 thou. So he's like around there. Okay, well, at this point I'm taking his word for it, but I suppose if I do drop the pan, if this first step doesn't fix it, I can always clean up a couple, pull a main cap, pull a rod cap, and I can re-plastic gauge them if I really want to know, which if we're that far, maybe it's worth it. But let's get started. First is I got to disassemble this bad boy, and we'll see how those plugs pound in, and I'll show you what that looks like. Here's the plate we're after. This, like I said, is for a Gen 3 block, which is what I originally purchased for this engine. I'm sorry, for this car. And I forgot I had started buying parts. So let's get this off. I'll show you the differences between the two. Maybe we can see something interesting in there. It'd be great if there was a sign that said, here's your oil pressure loss, dumbass. That would sure make this a lot easier than trying to jack up the engine and drop the pan. Let's find out together. All right, so I'm gonna show this. This just came off. As you can see, this does not have the seals for those risers. And for those online who say oil doesn't get up there, look at that. Like, you can see very clearly, where's my finger? Here was a pool. There was a pool right over one of those towers. Another spot. And I mean, the bottom of this is pretty much covered in oil. I would also argue that based on what I'm seeing here, very potentially I was also leaking oil out of this seal where the oil pressure sensor would normally go. So I don't know if this is a smoking gun, but we're gonna do the right thing. Put the other kit in, clean everything up, brake clean, get all the oil off the surfaces, and try this again. But just curious. There you have it. It's what it looks like. As far as nothing, I mean, nothing crazy in here. I mean, you can see, it's probably hard to pick up in the camera. But you can see some oil. I'm gonna go through kind of with a flashlight and do a little bit better inspection. 2x4 is still holding in there, so that's great. But I'm gonna put this off to the side, get some clean rags, and get this process started. All right, so these are what I got off Amazon, and they got like 66 5-star reviews with people and pictures. And so these are little tapered plugs, hoping I don't split my block. Then we're going right to JB Weld, I guess. But we're just gonna take the first one nice and easy and see how this goes. Obviously, being careful not to drop it in the engine, albeit I do have some rag shoved down there. And I have my mini maul. So we're just gonna give the first one, see if I can set you up somewhere. It'll probably fall anyways, but there you go. So we'll just see if we can give it some light taps and see if it'll go home. Okay, so far, first impression is, yep. Okay, now let's see if I can get, I might have to get a little flat punch out here. My fingers are probably gonna be in the way, but this is just, I think, an old door hinge. But it's hardened, so it should be okay-ish. All right, let's see here. Gonna need more oomph. Well, I will get this out of the way. I'll get that one pounded down, and then we'll come back, take a look at it. How about that? Okay, and there you go. This is the punch I use. Like I said, I think this is just an old, part of an old door hinge or some hardened piece of metal. But those did go right down. There's some rough edges right around it from where it popped in. But I'm not worried about that because we're gonna have, I mean, it doesn't have to be perfectly flush. I think we're gonna have, you know, a minimum of the thickness of the gasket and the O-rings. But I will probably carefully go over that with a little small file with some grease on it after I get all the rest pounded in. That will certainly ensure that none of those are ever gonna leak a ton of oil pressure by them. And what I liked about this kit was the fact that they do have threads built in them. So if you ever needed to pull one out, you should be able to screw something in there. I don't know what that is, 8/32 or some metric thread, and use a slide hammer and pull them out if needed. So I'm gonna go knock out the rest. You don't need to watch all that, and I'll bring you back for when I'm done. There they are, all the plugs are in. Now I'm gonna get the vacuum out, vacuum up around these rags, and then carefully pull the rags out in case any little pieces of wood splinters from the hammer, anything, right? So I'm gonna get the vacuum in here, suck all this out, get the rags out, clean everything up, and get ready to put the new valley cover back in. Here is the new ICT block off plate. As you can see, has a slightly different gasketing design instead of using like a factory type valley gasket. This one has sort of the same type of gasket you find on the intake. It just pushes in there, make sure you have it nice and seated and everything isn't, you know, nothing's pulling. And just work that around. And then the little black O-rings, I just threw a little bit of lube on to help seat them. Pushed them down with my thumb. Don't be using a hammer or anything silly like that. And not that it's gonna matter much because we have those plugs in there. This is just gonna kind of be that extra protection. So we'll get this set in, get the screws in. This gets tightened to 18 foot-pounds. That's not inherently expressed in the directions, but a quick Google search confirms in a couple other places that it is. Uses the factory spec of the 18 foot-pounds. So, you don't need to watch me install this. I will bring you back, I guess, when we're ready to test oil pressure. Yay. All right, I did a little tuning here. I wanted to start it, show you guys what kind of oil pressure we are working with now. Basically, the tune I had in there from Holly wasn't super happy, probably because of the cam specs and a few other things, but let's, this will be a cold start. Haven't started this in some time here, but let's go. Let's start and bam. What a good little engine. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of Beyond the Manual. I did want to also put out there that sometime here this spring, I'll announce this in the video so there won't be any surprises. I'm going to do a little bit of a giveaway of sorts, and might seem kind of silly, but hey, I have the extra parts. It's a hassle for me to just sell all these pieces individually on eBay or on Marketplace, what have you. So I'll figure out the parameters, but I have a good amount of leftover LS parts. Let's see, we have front covers. I have an AC compressor that's brand new in a box. I have some other third gen parts I'm probably going to include in that as well. So it'll be a mix of leftover LS engine parts that are either new or in very good condition, as well as some F-body parts. So I'm going to put all that together in a mystery box, if you will, and we'll make a fun little drawing or something out of that. I'll figure it out, but that is coming, so stay tuned. And again, thanks for watching.